Welcome to the world of those who stayed, a place where I, a soul left behind, will tell you stories you were never meant to hear, forgotten houses, nameless graves, and places where you should never have walked. If you've ever felt a chill with no wind, if you've ever sensed eyes watching in the dark, you're not alone. So, subscribe. I have more stories to tell, and leave a comment. I read them all, even when you don't think I'm there now. Stay silent and listen.
Episode 1, The Intruder of House 109. We don't like being called ghosts. That's a human word. Among ourselves, we're simply the ones who never left. I've lived in this house. No, stayed in this house for nearly 80 years. When the roof started to fall in, when the glass cracked, when weeds swallowed the front porch, that's when I realized I couldn't go anywhere anymore, and I wasn't alone. There are 4 of us. Each died in a different time, but all tied here by what they call karma. One took their own life. One lost theirs in a violent night. One doesn't remember how, just a scream echoing from the basement. I'm the oldest. You can call me Grandpa. I'm used to living in House 109 on Fernhill Road. It's been abandoned since 1973, after a family of 3 vanished. They say we're the reason, but the truth is, we don't hate humans. We're afraid of them, not because they hate us, but because they hide things even we can't face. That night, the Uninvited Uninvited was a damp September night. No rain, but the ground steamed like hell itself was breathing. I sat at the 2nd floor window, watching the fog-thick front yard. Then he arrived, a young man, flashlight in hand, backpack on, mumbling to his camera. This is the famous haunted house on Fernhill. People say they've seen a white figure at the window. Today, I'm going in. I'll show the truth. I sighed. Another wannabe YouTuber. I blinked, signaling Lena, the messy-haired girl who lives in the basement. She crawled up to the ceiling like a white cat. Lena loves to scare, but she's never hurt anyone. To her, it's all still a game. Isaac, the tall man with sunken eyes, walked past the boy without looking. Rotten, he muttered. There's something rotting in this one's heart. Shivered, not from the boy, from Isaac. He rarely says that. Exploration, or digging too deep. He didn't just bring a camera and an audio recorder. I heard him whisper, "This is where the 1973 disappearance happened." The husband's name was Daniel Pierce. They say he murdered his wife and daughter, then vanished, but no bodies were found. I'll find the truth. I froze. Daniel Pierce didn't kill anyone. He was the first to die. His wife killed him. It was a horrific night. I saw it from upstairs. The wife stabbed him with kitchen shears, then strangled. The daughter, she believed they were betraying her. She snapped, then ended her own life in the upstairs bathroom. We never told anyone, even as ghosts. We were disgusted. Lena's little Gamila swung from the chandelier as the boy entered the foyer in his flashlight beam. Her shadow stretched like a hanged doll. He froze. What was that? His voice shook. The EMF meter beeped wildly. Lina giggled, crawled down on all fours, scuttled up the wall like in a horror movie, and vanished into a dark corner. I thought, leave. Now's your chance. But he said, yes, there's a spirit here. I knew it. Isaac and I sighed together. Humans aren't afraid of ghosts anymore. They crave us for views, for fame, for clicks. The basement, nitrogen monoxide place for the Ella VNG. He opened the basement door. I screamed inside. Don't. Go down there. She's still there. Not all ghosts stay sane. Some rot into something that only knows screaming and hate. She, Daniel's wife, she's not a person anymore. None of us have gone down in decades, but he did. I slid across the floor, rushed to the top of the stairs, summoning a cold wind around him. What the hell? He shivered, but he didn't stop. Flashlight on, step by step, he reached the bottom, where the wailing began. Not Lena, not Isaac, not me, her, the scream. That doesn't belong. CR, ripped up from the basement like it tore through memory itself. I don't know what she is anymore, a soul or something worse, but I know if she touches him, he won't die. He'll vanish like he never existed. I rushed down. Too late. He stood there, back turned, as something pale and hollow-eyed loomed, its hand reaching his shoulder, and he turned, but he didn't scream, didn't run. He said, I know who you are. I've been looking for you for 2 years. I froze. Even Isaac paused. I'm your grandson, he whispered. My mom told me stories about Daniel, about the child. I don't believe you were a murderer. I want to know what really happened. I felt the air shift like a storm dissolving. The pale shape began to fade. Her eyes glistened, tears floating into vapor. He knelt, pressed a hand to the old floor. You were a victim. No one understood, but I believe you. And then a light filled the basement, not from anywhere. A quiet fading. She was gone. The three of us stood in silence. I'd never seen a soul freed like that. Not with rituals, not with blood, but with belief. He stood. No speech, just whispered, Thank you for keeping her safe. And left. We, Lena, Isaac, and I watched him go. No one scared him. For the first time in 80 years, I saw light at the top of the stairs, the place where I died. Maybe I'm finally ready to leave. We don't fear humans because they live. We fear what they bury, the hate, the lies, the pain too heavy for words. Don't ask why ghosts haunt abandoned houses. Ask why people abandon each other and disappear with no one to remember. Episode 2. The forest with night way out. We don't wander. We live within our boundary. But humans, they keep crossing it, thinking it's only trees and wild animals. The forest I guard has no name. People call it the fog forest because it's always misty. No sunlight, no wind reaching the ground. I don't know how long I've been here. Just that, when I closed my eyes for the last time in the freezing cold, I was called to the other side. But I didn't go. I chose to stay. Something wasn't finished. I'm a gatekeeper, a ghost guarding a boundary. There are many like me here. We don't harm anyone. We only whisper to those who wander in, turn back. This place is not for the living. The day they came, laughter, lost in the treesy, felt their footsteps from afar for young people. Sharp laughter, Bluetooth speaker blaring through the leaves. Birds flew off. Wind held its breath. The trees fell silent. One girl said, "This is the restricted forest. Looks normal to me. Just dumb rumors." Another lit a cigarette. They say someone got lost here and ended themselves, probably dodging debt. I stood on a high branch, invisible to them. Lena, the girl from a house 109, once said, "Sometimes the dead aren't as scary as what people say about them." I understood and waited. Maybe they'd just pass through. But no, they set up camp, lit a fire, played music, carved names into the trees, and broke the seal. The old wooden mark, something never to touch in the heart of the forest. There's a wooden stump, looks like a dead root, just knee-high. Carved into it, a spiral mark, a four-fingered hand, and two closed eyes. That's the seal, the line between two worlds. We guard it in silence. Every creature here avoids it, but this is cool. Looks tribal. Let me carve into it. I shrieked in silence. Other spirits trembled. No one carves the seal. No one touches it, but he did. A single knife stroke across the wood, like cutting into my chest. The ground shuddered. Forest bats burst into the gray. Sky and darkness began to leak from the earth. The shapeless, shadowy had seen it before once. When I was alive, it had no form, no face, but it could see. It didn't walk, but it could be beside you without you knowing. In my village, they called it the Nameless One. It had been sealed underground beneath that mark, and now it was rising. One girl started shaking, clutched her head, screamed, "Stop! Who's looking at me? Who's whispering in my ear?" No one answered. No one heard. Only we, the ghosts, saw it. A long black shadow, like a snake, sliding past their necks. A game, BGINS, we gatekeepers, can't hurt the living, but we can warn them. I blew a cold wind, snuffing the campfire. Lena somehow found her way to the forest, took the shape of a lost child, ran past their tents in the mist. They screamed, "Who's that? A girl. Where did she come from?" Then things fell apart. Flashlights died. Phones blacked out. The speaker played a voice, but not from any of them. It said, "You killed him. Stop pretending to care. Don't trust her. She broke her sister's teeth. She ended a pregnancy and told no one. Not scares, truths, and the most terrifying part, the shadow didn't lie. It spoke what only hearts knew." The collapse of Faryan D's IP. By morning, they weren't friends anymore. One ran into the woods, never came back. One slammed his head into a tree, screaming, "Shut up," as if to kill the voice in his mind. The kind girl Mai was tied up by the others. They thought, "She's a spirit in disguise. No one's that good. She's tricking us." I watched it fall apart, helpless. We used to think ghosts were scary, but clearly, people need no supernatural to become monsters. Death and Arla, as Mai, the last one, still sane, sat quietly beneath. The scarred seal, she didn't cry, didn't speak, just whispered, "I know this forest holds something. I didn't come here to camp. I came to rest." She pulled out a folded paper, a drawing of the spiral hand. Then she said, "When I was little, I lived near here. I once saw a shadow lead my sister into the woods. She never came back. My mom went mad. My dad blamed me. I grew up with voices in my head. I came back to ask the forest, is my sister still here? I stood still. Then I saw a little girl, short hair, dream-like face, walked from the earth, light twinkling around her. She hugged and both faded into the mist. The return of the seal after that night. The forest quieted. The seal began to heal. No one remembered the incident. No bodies found. The others missing. Only we, the forest ghosts, knew. Some don't enter the woods to challenge. Some come to seek forgiveness. And sometimes the forest accepts. Ghosts aren't scary. The forest isn't cursed, but pain pressed too long into a human heart can become something that swallows souls. You can light a fire in the woods, but if your heart is darker than night, you'll burn everyone around you. Episode 3, Hallway 5. Not everyone who dies in a hospital gets to move on. Some are forgotten, some are hated, and the rest stay because of a vow. I used to be a doctor. My name is Nathaniel Grant, lead anesthesiologist at St. Emmerich Hospital, a place once famous for saving lives, later infamous for mysterious deaths. I died here, not from illness, not from an accident, but because I chose to stay even after my heart stopped. S.E. Emmerich used to be the biggest hospital in the west of the city. People called it the last place of hope. But hope doesn't last. Long in the dark dot, in just 3 years, the death rate quadrupled. Machines malfunctioned. Patients woke up mid-surgery. Some disappeared from isolation rooms. Hallway 5 was sealed off after a strange self-immolation case in an empty room. No one knew who set the fire. No body was found, only a burnt human-shaped mark on the floor. I stayed because I knew the truth. The night they came back, they arrived at 2:33 a.m. 3 of them, a guy with a camera, a girl with a flashlight, and an old man in a worn-out shirt, holding a file. They entered through the back exit of Wing D, sealed off since 2003. The girl whispered, "Did they really operate on someone without anesthesia here?" The cameraman smirked. "Just rumors. The scarier it is, the more views we get." The old man said nothing, but I saw it. A photo in his pocket. A little girl in a hospital gown. I knew that girl. She once called me the doctor with the softest hands. Memory from operating room to her name was Eliza, 8 years old. Terminal bone cancer. I was in charge. I chose not to go through with a 4th surgery because she wouldn't survive it. Her father, the man who returned tonight, punched me, called me a coward. 3 days later, Eliza died of respiratory failure. He never came back. Until now. Hallway 5, cold without winter, they entered hallway 5. The door opened, even though it was welded shut from the outside. I floated above, following them from the ceiling. Not to scare, but to protect. I knew something had nested. Here, a wound that hadn't healed, the cameraman whispered while filming. Room 501, surgery without anesthesia. 502, patient hanged herself with an IV tube. 503, nurse went mad. 8, her own heart. The girl chuckled nervously. The old man just stared at one door. 500 for the room where his daughter once stayed. The door opens. Without anyone touching IT room 504 creaked open. No one touched it. I didn't. Neither did the other spirits guarding this place. Inside, I saw Eliza, small, barefoot, hair covering her face, standing in the corner, but her eyes were pure white, no pupils. She wasn't Eliza anymore. She hadn't moved on, not out of hatred, but confusion. She didn't understand why her father never came, why everyone disappeared after she died, and in that fog of loneliness, she hardened into rage. Room 504, a sentence for those who stay. Her father stepped inside. The door slammed shut. The girl screamed. The cameraman pounded on the door. Inside, Eliza didn't attack. She just stood in front of her father and asked, "Why didn't you come?" He cried, collapsed, but gave no answer, and that silence melted her into mist, vanishing into the sounds of old respirators echoing from the past. I understood then. She didn't need blood. She needed the truth. The leaving and those who stay, the door opened again. The old man stepped out, trembling, but strangely at peace. The cameraman wanted to ask something, but the old man only said, "I'm not looking for her anymore. I saw her dot, and for the first time in 20 years, I can sleep." The old bells ring once more as they left hallway 5. I heard the nurse call bells ring. They'd been silent for years. I looked down the hallway. No one was there, just me. An empty bed where I once worked, where I once died trying to save lives. I exhaled, not breath, but a vow. Finally lifted. Maybe that night I took one step closer to a door I'd refused to enter for too long. Some spirits stay not to haunt, but to fulfill a promise left unfinished. Sometimes what traps them isn't death, but silence. A hospital is where the living seek life, but also where the dead wait for answers to rest. Episode 4, The Blood Room. There are rooms that remember pain. Even if the walls are torn down, even if the building is rebuilt, the pain stays. I'm not a patient. I wasn't even supposed to be here. My name is Mara, and I only entered this hospital to look for my brother. He disappeared 5 years ago. After walking into this place, no goodbye, no trace. Only one message sent at 3:03 a.m. Room 312. Don't come. If I don't leave, run. I didn't run. I waited 5 years. Then I came. The red stain on the wall that never dries. Room 312 was supposedly repainted twice, but even on the white new walls, a dark red stain kept bleeding through. They said it was just rust or maybe mold, but I saw it. I touched it. It was warm. It was wet, and when I turned around, the hallway behind me was gone. Only one thing remained. An old patient wristband on the floor. It had my brother's name on it, and a date, the 3rd of March, 20, the day he disappeared. Inside the room that breathes, I stepped inside. The walls pulsed like lungs. The floor creaked like bones. There were no windows, no door behind me anymore. Just a bed, bloody but empty, and a mirror, cracked in 3 places. But it didn't reflect me. It showed someone lying on the bed, wearing my brother's hoodie. Eyes open, mouth sewn shut. The blood room is not a place, it's a feeding ground. I screamed. The walls didn't echo. They swallowed the sound. Then I saw him, my brother, in the corner, thin, pale, but breathing. He whispered without lips, "Don't talk. Don't bleed. It listens." I nodded. Then something moved under the bed. It wasn't a person. It wasn't even shaped like one. Just limbs, crawling out in the wrong order. Then it spoke. "You shouldn't have come. You broke the pact. Now you stay." What happened on March 3? My brother was part of a group. 5 urban explorers. They entered the abandoned hospital for a video. They never came out. The footage recovered from their last stream showed only 3 things: screaming, blood, someone whispering repeatedly. Room 312 eats the loudest one first. My brother wasn't the loudest. He was the last. He stayed to help the others. He made a deal. Let them go. I'll feed you stories every night. And so he stayed, alive, trapped, telling stories to a thing made of walls and whispers. To keep it from escaping the exchange, I grabbed his hand, told him I would take his place. He refused. But in that cry, I saw peace. He kissed my forehead and said, "Then you must remember the rules. Tell the truth, never lie, and never stop. Because the moment you stop, the walls grow teeth." Now, I tell the stories. My name is Mara, and I live in room 312. I tell the truth every night to feed the thing behind the walls, to stop it from reaching the rest of the world. So, if you ever hear stories that sound too real, ones that make your heart freeze, maybe they came from me, or from the blood room, the room that never forgets, the room that only wants one thing more. Some people vanish, not because they're weak, but because they're brave enough to make a deal no one else would. Some places don't kill you, they keep you until you become part of the story. Episode 5. The Nameless Grave. In the farm, I was never allowed to leave that field. Even when the wind changed, when the grass turned yellow and dry, even when they forgot my name, I was still there, beneath the hard soil, under a nameless stone. I was waiting for someone to remember me. My name is Ellie Mae Carter. I used to live with my mother on an old farm south of Dryfield, a place full of wind, sand, and seeds that never grew. No one spoke of me. No one asked about me. Only a small patch of land right in the middle of an old cornfield where people would say, "Don't touch that stone." That's where the earth rejects plants and the old ones reject names. A farm that remembered unotiester I was. Number. Longer with my mother, the farm was abandoned from the outside. It was just rotting barns, a leaning shed, and cracked walls beaten by the wind. But for me, everything remained. The little blue room where I used to draw the sun with chalk. The hammock on the porch where my mom read poetry. And the patch of land between the fields where I stayed. No grave marker. No name. Just a large, smooth rock, as if nothing had ever been placed there. They wanted to dig it nearly 30 years later. A new family moved in, a young couple and a daughter around 8, named Rosie. She had red hair like mine, and eyes that always looked far away, like she was searching for something only children could see. Her parents wanted to rebuild the greenhouse and plant corn again. They hired people to clear the weeds, tear down the old well, and flatten the fields until they reached the nameless stone. A stone that could WHASP. That night, the sky was still, but the grass moved, the lights flickered, even though there was no storm. Rosie looked out the window and whispered, "Someone sad." I had no face to cry, but I could feel tears. I didn't want them to touch that stone. It was the only thing left, a small sign. I once existed, but her father didn't believe in such things. He said, "It's just a rock. Break it and fill it in." I tried to speak for the first time in 30 years. Wasn't like other ghosts. I couldn't move things, couldn't break mirrors, couldn't pull curtains, but I could whisper while someone slept. That night, I came close to Rosie and whispered in her ear, "Don't let them touch the stone. If it's gone, I'll have nothing." The next morning, Rosie ran into the field and stood in front of the stone. She shouted, "Don't break it. Someone is still here. Adults don't hear, but the earth do us." Though Rosie begged, her parents didn't listen. They thought she was making things up. That afternoon, a worker hit the stone with a machine. Within 5 minutes, the sky turned dark. Even though it wasn't yet, for P.M. Wind howled from underground. like a long, aching cry. The machine shut down. The man felt someone watching him, though the field was empty. He ran, left everything behind. Rosie's family started to believe something was wrong. I didn't want to scare. I just wanted to estimate. That night, I showed myself to Rosie for the first time. She didn't cry. She asked, "Who are you?" I smiled, the only thing I could do. And with my fingertip, I wrote on the foggy window, "Ellie, I used to be here. I'm still here." She whispered, "I'll protect you. Do you want a name?" A name returns to the earth a few days later. Rosie came back to the stone. With paint, she wrote, "Ellie, someone was here, and still is." Since that day, the wind calmed. The lights stopped flickering. And when her mother planted seeds nearby, they began to sprout. No one knew why. They thought it was luck. But I knew the earth had accepted me, and I had my name again. I'm not alone. A&Y Mora Rosie visited me every afternoon. She told me about school, about friends, about her new dog named Marley. She sat beside the stone like it was a park bench. She said, "If one day I can't come back here, you'll be really sad, won't you?" I didn't answer, but a soft breeze brushed her hair. 0.30 years without a voice, but one heart was enough used to think. That when no one remembered you, you disappeared. But now I know, just one person believing you were here is enough to keep you. No church bells, no cold headstone, just a name written in compassion. There are places on earth without signs, but someone is always waiting to be called. Memory doesn't live in stone. It lives in those who choose to believe you were once here and still are.